Welcome everyone to Shelf Shuffle. We find out different books from a lot of different genres, what you might want to read next. So we're just going to jump right in and start with Linda. Linda, can you tell us what your newest book is?
My newest and my first and only book is The Beauty and the Hell of It and Other Stories, and it's a collection about women who dare to color outside the lines. So I like to say it's my answer to the loveliness imperative, which is just the pressure we place on women to be appealing to men in everything they do, and these women are pushing back on that expectation.
Awesome. Stephen, how about your book?
I'm doing great today, and my new book coming out, it's actually the fourth in a series. It's called Snoodles in Space, Escape from Zoodletraz. And it's Schmoodle the Poodle and Droodle the Poodle, the two poodles, they're sent off to Zoodletraz because they don't allow pets on the planet Zoodle, and it's terrible that they don't allow pets. I'm against it. I believe they should have pets. But anyway, this is about rescuing Droodle and Schmoodle the poodles. And there's a lot of music-based stuff. And we also have an album, Noodle Ham Rocks, that goes with Snoodles in Space, Escape from Zoodletraz.
Awesome. So great children's story coming out soon. William, how about you? What is your book about?
My book is about Alan Hovhaness unveiling one of the great composers of the 20th century. I'm actually the co-author. My mother wrote most of the text. However, she passed away and was not able to publish it. That's why I picked it up and did all the, editing and pictures and all the wrapper for it. The book is about Alan Hovhaness, not the composer, but the personal side of him. So it does cover a lot of their adventures in the music world, conversations they had with different composers and musicians, performers. It documents dates, and it originally was written to be a documentary and to show the personal side of him, but it eventually ended up being more like a love story between my mother and her husband, Alan Hovhaness.
Okay, so they were actually married. Okay,
Right.
Fantastic. And Trisha.
Hi, I write young adult fantasy. My latest release is To Be a Fae. In the series, Queen Titania, who is right here with us, is crowned queen. She's the first female monarch in her realm. And To Be a Fae is the fifth and final book in the series of the Realm Chronicle series. So it wraps that series up, and it's very exciting to have a complete series.
Fantastic. That's beautiful. And Tara, what do you got going on?
I have my second book, At Least I'm Trying. It's a new adult contemporary coming out on October 15th, and I like to describe it as Snapchat gone wrong. It basically highlights the worst case scenario of what could happen meeting people on the internet.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like a warning story for adults?
A little thriller vibes, but yeah, very much a warning.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I love the title. I was thinking that's hilarious. Great. So we got 2 YA short stories, nonfiction, and children's. That's fantastic. All right. Can you tell us, Linda, a little bit more about like the preface behind your book? Like, why did you write the book that you wrote?
Rage at the contemporary female plight of existence. And it was actually well-distributed rage over a period of about 15 years. That's what the stories span. And I didn't really take the idea of getting them collected together as a compilation seriously until the beginning of 2020. Lots of people had more time on their hands then. And I saw people posting on social media that they were writing books, getting them published. And it made me jealous for the stories I had festering in a drawer. And that's what inspired me to put the collection together.
Very cool. The rage thing has got me, though. We'll have to come back to that. Stephen, so this is a continuation of a series. So, yeah, like where did the series come from?
Well, it all started like my first book was The Last Surviving Dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus. Saurus is a Yiddish word for problems. And then I wrote 2 adult books on crankiness, The Grown-Up Guide to Effective Crankiness, The Crankosaurus Method, Cranky Superpowers, Life Lessons Learned from the Comic Crankosaurus Chronicles. So I have those. And things come out of being cranky, and then it became more kids' books. And I had Snoodles, Cadoodles, Poodles, and Lots of Noodles, Snoodles in Space, Snoodle, the Zulu, Cadoodles, One Happy Schmoodle, Snoodles in Space, the Zulu Strike Back. So now there's the 4th one, Escape from Zoodle Trash. And with every book, I'm thinking, okay, that's it. And my illustrator, who we work together, Andy Case, he keeps bothering me, like, oh, you have to like do more stories. And I go, I have nothing. And with this particular book, he never told me, but he happens to be a musician. He comes out with this album, Leap of Faith, Andy Case, Leap of Faith. It's a great album. He's coming out with his 2nd album in a month or 2. And there's 2 songs that all of a sudden I had this story. It was Lost Souls in the Dark, and I have this guitar going through space, like the spaceships flying through space. And then there's another song, Break Free, which it's the guitar starts like taking off from a planet. So I have the story, and all of a sudden it popped in my head, this whole story. And I kind of write. I'm a runner. I do run in the morning. Like I go out for my 2-hour run, and the stories get written in my head when I run. I just watch the characters and I just let them talk. And I came back with a story, and I just wrote it down. So, and then I have a great illustrator who'll draw up the pictures.
That's awesome. William, so this sounds like a finishing of a family legacy project almost for you.
Right. So my mother was a singer. She played and performed in the Seattle Opera Chorus. She also played she was a soloist throughout the Seattle area. And she met a famous classical composer at a piano recital. And they got to know each other and eventually married in 1977. And throughout her life, she kept a diary. And when her husband, Alan Ovanis, passed away in 2000, she started writing poetry to him. And after writing hundreds of poems to him, throughout maybe a 5-year period, then she realized that she wanted to document their stories. All these famous composers, Beethoven, Mozart, they all have stories behind them that people know of, but not necessarily firsthand knowledge. So she took her diaries, she fact-checked them, and she wrote short stories for each one of their different adventures, gossip behind the classical music world, and created this book, a draft of this book, but she was not able to publish it before she passed away in 2022.
Wow. Well, it's very cool that you're continuing on and finishing the project for her. And then, sorry, am I butchering your name? Is it Trisha?
Trisha.
Trisha, it is Trisha. Okay, all right.
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay, all right. So this is like the end of the series, but yeah. So where did your series start? Like, how did you, start?
Right, my series started. I saw an advertisement for an anthology, or to submit short stories to an anthology, and the anthology was supposed to be based on fantasy characters with mental health challenges. And on the advertisement, they had an image of a fairy who was hunched in a meadow. and she looked scared or anxious. And I'd never written about fairies. I'd written about witches and vampires, but never fairies. Never thought about writing about fairies. Had no clue about like current fairy tropes or current fae fiction. But this image really intrigued me. So I thought, well, what if, what is she scared of? What if she has, anxiety and panic attacks? And what role would that hinder her in? If she was the queen of a kingdom, then that would be really bad, right? So, I created the short story, but the anthology never went anywhere. So I had this short story, and I was currently writing a witch series, and the witches needed an army. I thought, the witches can have the fairies as an army, and Titania can come help the witches. And then, one spinoff later to a series, The Realm Chronicles was born. And then throughout the series, I do have the witches from the first series come in and help the fairies, and the fairies help the witches. So it is a little bit contemporary in that manner, because the fairies come into the human realm and help the witches.
There's a little blending going on there.
Right. I'm jealous of Stephen because I'm a runner too, but my 135,000 word book does not get written in my run. Yeah.
No, it's like a chapter at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It seems like ideas. I don't know. Maybe it's the extra oxygen flow going through your body, just like stimulates the brain. The whole runner's high thing kind of always has intrigued me too, how runners can come up with insanely good ideas while they're running. Tara, so yes, was there a reason for this? Did you get burned a little, or do you know people that have? Or
I'm an elder millennial and have no part of Snapchat. However, I am a teacher of teenagers, so I am surrounded by people who are very, very much into Snapchat. And both of my books kind of deal with this space of social media and how it's affected the teenage experience based on my what I've experienced as a teacher and what I've seen and the changes in my students. So my first book's more like close to home, just kind of like the mental health piece and all of the toll it takes on especially teenage girls, having this social media in their life. But I wanted to show kind of the extreme side, and at least I'm trying. And I see a lot of things on the news too about, how kids are being targeted through these very popular sites. And my kids talk to me, my students, I call them my kids. They talk to me about like what they see, who talks to them, and what's going on. And I just kind of compiled those together and showed that like extreme implication of, if you do trust people online, you do make these connections online, what could happen.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception too when it comes to like a lot of parents, I think, feel like law enforcement has this huge, presence that they're constantly like searching for people, but it's actually very hard to track a lot of these people down, it seems like.
Yeah, very hard. As Snapchat, everything disappears. Like that's the whole premise behind it, right? So it's hard to track temporary people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Crazy. Linda, I got to jump back to you about that rage, because I think we cut that a little bit short. So let's get into the rage a little bit and unpack that.
Some of it is very personal and based on my lived experience as a survivor of abusive relationships and a person who lives with a mood disorder. So there's plenty of rage bubbling up on the surface surrounding those things. The women in my stories are often dealing with grief, loss, mental illness, or trauma, or some combination thereof. And I guess what made me really angry about those things is when you're a messy and complicated woman, and when you're dealing with those things, life is messy and complicated, you're often stereotyped as a bitch, as crazy, and then dismissed. Men get the glory of being anti-heroes. And I wanted that for the women in this book. I wanted to give them the dignity of being anti-heroines. So that's a little more on that.
Very cool. Interesting. So many questions. All right, we'll get there. Stephen, tell us about your poodle.
What? Tell about who?
Your poodle. Like I want to know more about your poodle that gets Yeah, you said the poodle gets
There's
thrown in
lots of
prison, right?
poodles. Every book has a new poodle.
So,
So
right, the one that
and
winds up in prison. So
well,
why did the
well,
poodle wind up in prison?
well. The thing in the book before, you read the books. You should know. Why you read you should
Well,
read the
nobody else,
story.
everybody watching needs to
Oh,
know.
okay. But anyway, that's right. So in the last book, Droodle the poodle, very wet dog, uh, marries Doodoo Cadoodle. Doodoo Cadoodle is a zoodle, and on the planet Zoodle, there are no pets allowed. Droodle the poodle was the pet on Earth, and Doodoo and Droodle fell in love, and they got married at the end of the book, and there's a whole wedding. It's very beautiful, and the only thing is that, well, in this book, what happens is it talks about the music scene in Noodleham and Swifty Swoodle and the Doowapadoodles. They're like the biggest thing ever. They have a gazillion-dollar tour, and it gets up to Croodle the Grand Roodle, who hears about it, and he thinks he could get like even more like popular, but he kind of sucks. He goes to Earth for a tour, the first Zoodle concert tour, and he gets booed off stage. So he wants kind of to get back, and he remembers about Droodle the poodle getting married and being on Zoodle, and no pets are allowed on Zoodle. So he plots to take Droodle to Zoodle Traz. And there's also Schmoodle from the book before that Schmoodle put all the Zoodles asleep in the second book for them to escape. There's a whole thing there.
So it's
So
like
he remembers
King
that, and
Windsor.
he sends Schmoodle to Zoodle Traz. It's very terrible. It's a
Yeah.
terrible place. You wouldn't want, and now you want to go there because it's a big music venue. But back then it was terrible.
That's what you mean. Oh my gosh. So yeah, it sounds like so does he become a happier person afterwards too, or is he just still a revenge little guy?
Well, he becomes a Chaka Oompa Doodle, but that's a different story.
That's
That's a
different.
story for maybe for the next book.
Well, can't wait to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So William, excuse me. How was it having a internationally acclaimed composer as your stepfather? I'm assuming.
Correct. Yeah. So when I was younger and first met him, I didn't realize the importance behind him. My mother associated with several performers and would have them over to our house occasionally, and he was just another person that came to dinner. But as we grew older, I found out his importance in the music world. Alan and I became very close together. I actually lived with them, my mother and Alan, for a couple of years. And, while my mother was doing the dishes or cooking dinner, Alan and I would sit down and he would tell me many of his stories when he was younger. And so a lot of the stories that are in the book, I remember from him telling me also. In fact, I just talked to someone from Los Angeles. I've been trying to contact some of his acquaintances. A lot of them are just know his stories from, reading books or the internet. And I have conversations with them, and they would, tell me a story, and I would say, "Oh, well, Alan, mentioned this also happened during that." And so these people are very interested in hearing the personal side of, not just the information that's on the internet. So I was fairly close to my mother and Alan. We lived probably within 15 minutes of them, and my family's visited, quite often, weekly. And so Alan kind of became the grandfather to my children. And I was a avionics systems engineer contractor, and so I traveled throughout the U.S. And after my mother passed, then I retired from that and came to live in their home to upgrade their business and categorize all their archives. And so by doing that, I found out, they kept records all in handwritten. And so going through all these archives, I'm finding all these other interesting aspects of Alan. And so now I'm finding that his value is even more than what I had originally known. And, most of the outside world know him as a composer, but there is so much more because he went off and studied different ancient cultures. And so in order to put that into his music, he also had to live that culture. So there's a lot of interesting things in his his writings. He has letters. He saved all his letters. So that's kind of where we're going. Is still in investigation state, but the book
sounds like you're constantly uncovering new things. Yeah,
right.
That's terrific, though, from an archive standpoint. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be tons of people that are interested, especially about the history of them. Yes. Trisha, I just saw your black cat come walking through. That's awesome. Perfect for a witch series. So yes. So how much of your stories, well, especially your character stories, regarding like her personal demons and her inner struggles and so on, like, do you feel like your readers, like, do they come to you and talk to you about that and like how it relates to them? Is that helping people?
I think so. I really like fantasy genre for being able to explore some of those themes that may not feel safe or in our contemporary society. But so there's themes of her being the first female ruler. There's themes of her overcoming her anxiety and these figuring out these panic attacks that she's having and maybe what triggers them and how she can deal with them. There's themes of family. She's lost 4 other brothers and she's the last to carry on her line. So all those themes kind of weave throughout the story, but she is also, you find out in the story, she becomes one who's being hunted by the enemy in the books, or this evil witch queen turned evil soul who's now targeting her. And she's straddled with this story that the fairies have passed along, that there will be one to end all evil. So then you have the question of, that burden, can one person end all evil? So that comes into play too. So it was a lot of fun to write.
Well, it sounds like there's so many ways to explore. I mean, you got a lot going on there because you got the family dynamic too, like the hardship and trauma of that, and losing family members as well. And yeah, wow. Okay, very cool. Tara, let's dive in a little bit more to your protagonists. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on in the story?
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but Reese is the protagonist. She's 17 years old, and she is a perfectionist to the max. A lot of pressure put on her from her family to be the best at everything. So she's the best volleyball player. She's up to be valedictorian, wants to get the scholarships, has the boyfriend, the friends, all the things. But then she has a series of failures. So she fails on the volleyball court, she fails in school, and she just starts to crumble under all this pressure. And instead of continuing to push, she just kind of gives up and seeks a completely different identity, basically. She meets some new friends, and that's what kind of leads her to meet this stranger who connected with them through Snapchat, and her life takes a really dark turn after that.
All right. Yeah, I don't want to pry too much because I don't want to give anything away. But yeah, from the perspective of being a teacher and seeing this stuff, do you feel a little bit hands tied behind your back in terms of like what you can do and how much you can actually help these kids?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we are taking steps at school levels. I think it's happening everywhere now where phones are definitely gone, like from most schools at this point. So we can control it in that space. And I have conversations with kids about what they're doing on their phones, and they're very open with me about it, which is great. But then at home, like once they leave the school, there's not much you can do. And I talk as much as I can, and I want my books to like start some conversations about, maybe not giving so much free access and free reign to kids to find the entire world at their fingertips. The whole world is in their back pocket at all times. So I know there's not much I can do, but this is my way of, just getting information out there for people and having those conversations, even though they might be a little bit difficult to have.
It sounds like some parents you're reading your books too. Like, so what is the age group of the kids that you teach? You said.
Yeah, I teach like 14 to 15-year-olds.
14, 15. Okay.
Yeah. So, and my first book was meant to be a YA book, Chasing Through Time, but actually mostly adults really liked it. And I think it was a lot of moms, I even had dads like, wow, like this like brought up a lot of things for me. And so my next book is definitely more new adult, just because the content matter is a little bit more mature. So I would be more like 16, 17 and up, but I hope parents and adults find just as much value in it too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super scary. But yeah, you need to stay informed, and that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Linda, talking about your series of stories, so is there a constant thread like between the actual characters in the story? Are they all the same character, or are they all different people? Just kind of grabbing people based on what you wanted to tell the story of.
Yeah, they're all different with the exception of 2 that have the same set of characters in them. So there's like 14 discrete universes within the collection.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So is it a continuation then, one or the other, or is it just kind of a drop into their life at completely different points?
Yeah, it's drop into their lives at completely different points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Can you give us a little high level of like what some of the stories are about in terms of like the overarching? Like, I know we talked about some generalities, but yeah, are there specific topics that you explore?
Yeah. So there's one story that's about a woman who encounters her rapist at an engagement party. And this is 10 years after the fact. So I think anybody who's experienced an assault has probably asked themselves, what would I do if I saw this person again? So that was the question the story started from. And then it very much became a story about what happens when women do and don't believe each other concerning events like this. There's another story. It's about a woman who's taking a humanities class about these female artists, and her professor happens to be a kind of hot but very chauvinistic guy. So she ends up handing in a box of Kraft dinner as her final assignment, and the story is very much, how did we get there? I have a story about marital betrayal in there as well, a woman who discovers only upon her husband's death that he was having an affair. And then we have the flip side of that in another story, a woman who's carrying on an extramarital affair. Another story dealing with eating disorders and how they're affecting the children of parents who struggle with those things.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, a lot of variety and a lot of different perspectives as well.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Stephen, tell us a little bit more about Andy. Like, how did you meet your illustrator, this incredible musical illustrator that you found? Sounds like once in a lifetime kind of fluke that you ran into it.
Yeah, no, and it's great. I could talk about it forever. So, and what's interesting is that I've been on podcasts or like programs with other children's authors, and the typical relationship with the illustrator, with you go through a publisher, you don't even get to meet your illustrator. You don't get to talk to your illustrator. You don't get to interact with your illustrator. You just interact with the publisher, and you get to the storyboards. You say what you are thinking about the illustration, and the illustrator does that. And that's actually my first book, The Last Surviving Dinosaur. I worked with Andy. I never met him, never spoke to him, and was happy with the book. But then, because I was happy with the book, I researched and found him, and then I reached out to him directly in Nottingham, England, and we've been doing. He's done all 5 of my books, and the four Snoodles books. Well, yeah, 4 Snoodles books we've done together. It's a collaboration, and it's just we've become like brothers. I just was like in August, I flew out to Nottingham and drank pints of beer with him, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, it's and the thing about it with the collaboration is that he'll have ideas, I'll have ideas. We'll throw things back at each other, and I love that because I love cooking. And a lot of this is like cooking, like, you keep tasting while you're making the soup, like it needs a little salt, it needs a little cumin, whatever. And then you get the perfect meal or perfect soup, whatever. So that's what it's like working with Andy. And then the other thing is that he'll send me pictures back and forth. And so every day is like Christmas, like it's like opening something up under the tree. And it's a lot of fun. So I recommend it. I recommend getting an illustrator and making lots of kid books just for that experience.
Just for that relationship building. Yeah. That's
Yes.
crazy. Yeah, no, I think you do have a very unique relationship with your illustrator. Yeah, you said most people don't actually even get to meet their illustrator. It's usually done through the publisher or something. Yeah, you don't get a lot of say, or there's not a lot of camaraderie or being able to build on each other.
Very sad. It's very sad.
It is, because
I don't
probably be a lot
understand
more
it.
books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes the fun. Like 80% of the fun is like, no, make them like this. No, I have an idea. It's just, and then, like thumbs up back and forth, and that's what hearts. We get hearts. He gives me hearts. I give him hearts. And that heart experience, those emoji hearts, like with your illustrator, is fun.
Too funny. Oh my goodness, William. What's going on in terms of upcoming? Do you have any promotions? I think you said that this is the anniversary of his passing coming up here. Are there special events coming up around that?
Right. Yeah. So it's the 25th anniversary of his passing, and next March will be his 150th or 115th birthday. So we do have several events coming up. We have so he is half Armenian and half Scottish, so he's very well known in Armenia. The Armenian churches have been very helpful in promoting this book. So we have what they have is book blessings. So book launches. They also have the ceremony where they bless the book, and people come up and we do signatures. So we have in October we have a book launch, book blessing in Los Angeles. We have one later in October in Boston, and then another one in Seattle in October. And of course, in addition to kind of the book publicity, that's brought in quite a few. So I kind of am the music distributor, so that brings additional performances and orders for music, and so that's really fueling the music side of the business. Interesting.
Okay. Well, it's good to hear that there's more and more interest in hearing and doing performances too for his work. That's fantastic. All right, Tricia, what are you working on next? Do you have anything? I'm assuming your series now could probably go on forever. It sounds like it's got a lot of legs if you wanted to do spin-offs and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, are you planning on doing that? Or are you starting a completely different project? Are you burnt out on it? Where are you at?
Yes, so there were a lot of characters that came into this finale story. They had a spell that they needed 12 different fantasy beings, I guess species of fantasy beings. So that's really fun to think about backstories or future stories for all of those different characters. Right now I'm writing a short story about a Nyx character, and I won't tell you what happens, what she does in in this current, but so for people who don't know, a Nyx is a character who shifts between a fish and a human, and so thinking about what her life and world would be like in contemporary human society is fun to think about. And there's a new fantasy magazine coming out. I think it's the Arcane Quill is the name. Yeah, so it's debuting in January of 2026, and that short story will be in that magazine. And that usually my short stories turn into novels and series, so we'll see where that goes.
I'd say like an entire series off of it. Yes, very cool. All right, Tina or Tara, sorry.
Yeah, same
series.
thing.
Yeah, well, I say, are you planning on doing a series of these, or?
No, but both. Well, I'm almost done my third novel, just the rough draft, but all three take place in the same world, just like a rural community, kind of based on where I grew up and where I live currently. Small
Where's that, by the
town.
way?
So
Give us a picture.
rural Alberta.
Alberta.
Like
Okay.
north. I'm like an hour north of Edmonton, Alberta, if you know where I'm. So I'm about 4 hours away from Linda. North, yeah, just keep going north. But yeah, it's just there's a super small town that like 10 minutes down the highway, and just lots of rural little acreages and communities surrounding it. So I kind of took that community and made a completely fictional place called Cardothia, but pulled from elements of where I live now, which is the same place where I grew up. So I have, yeah, it's the same world, and it all has a similar theme of like tech woven into it. And there's one character who makes an appearance in all three. But my book I'm working on right now is definitely more geared towards adult, like women's fiction. Same thing, but now like tech for adults. So, tech within a marriage, similar, like, well, Linda, you were talking about like having, affairs, but how tech plays into that and how it has become such a, it makes it easier, I guess, for people to stray within a marriage.
Yeah, there have been some global scale
Yes.
conspiracies around
Yes.
that. Well, that's been years.
Yeah.
Come out, yes. In the States.
Yeah.
So, okay, interesting. So no, TikTok isn't next on the list. That's what I was really wondering is, Snapchat to TikTok. And then maybe
Well, TikTok is brought up in all of them just because it's like, I don't know, that's the teenager's best friends is TikTok. So there's always somebody on TikTok in my book somewhere because that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and same problems really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. And Linda, what are you working on? Are you working on a new project, or do you have anything, passion projects or anything that you're looking at getting into?
Yeah, I think after you write a collection of stories, everyone expects you to go on and write a novel, just because they are more popular. Sadly, I am not doing that. I am writing more short stories. I'm gathering a collection around the theme of betrayals. So not just how we betray each other, but how we betray ourselves in sometimes very small, seemingly insignificant ways. And also, I think a very pressing question is, how are we betraying the planet? So there's that involved as well. And yeah, that's keeping me busy for the moment. I just released this book the first of the month. So I do have publicity to think about too. I'm being torn in the extroverted direction of push what you've done, and the introverted, okay, let's carve out some space to write alone.
That can be nice though. That way, like when you wake up in the morning and you feel extroverted, you can go do that thing. And if you feel introverted, you can do or switch it up midday, or yes.
Exactly.
Very cool. Well, that's very interesting, and good for you for just doing what you want to do. Because I think too often people do what they feel that they need to do, or other people tell them to do, etc. And do you? That's what I say.
Thank you.
Good job. Stephen, yes. This new book is coming out in October.
Yes.
So, but you said the next book. So it sounds like you're already noodling on the Snoodle Noodle next book, possibly.
Well, I have a story in my head, and I have bits and pieces. It's the first book. Every book gets like a venue and art or a museum. So the first book had an art museum. Second book had a space exploration museum. The third book had this aquarium, water park. Then it was the music venue. So now it's like the Zoo Olympics. So where there's going to be time travel and stuff going on with that.
Well,
So-
that needs to get out next year then, because like aren't the Olympics around the corner in 2026? I think.
I
I think so.
I'm
You got,
not
like,
in it. I'm not.
Ironman.
I'm too old for the Olympics. You know.
Come on.
No, but yeah. So that's the thought where it's going to be. It's almost going to be like a gladiator kind of theme, where I'm taking from the Gladiator, except it's Cloodle, the Grand Roodle, and Evil Cadoodle facing off in like kind of like a Iron Man competition. So, but it's just in my head right now. Haven't written it out. I've written pieces, but haven't put everything together.
It sounds like you need to bounce some things off of Andy, and yeah.
Yeah, he keeps bothering me to write more. So.
Okay. Well, can't wait to see that when it comes out.
Yes.
William, obviously you don't have another book about this because this is very substantial, but is there anything that you found in your going through all the different, pieces and like background and things at the house? I'm sure you're uncovering, that may lead to more content or possibly short stories or poems or anything like that.
Yeah. So going through the archives, I'm finding both my mother and Alan both have hundreds of poetry that they've written, which are unpublished. That's a possibility there. But this first book that my mother had written about kind of touches on several different aspects of Alan's life, things that he was into, that I think can, I've talked to several other historians that know of certain information. Like I just talked to someone last week that knew very well about his relationship when he went to India with Ravi Shankar. And so he has the kind of the technical high level information, but I have some of the details in some of the letters. And so, that would be another thing that, could be written about. And I don't know if anyone else is familiar with Ravi Shankar. He is a famous sitar player in India. And Alan was one of the first musicians to promote him in the United States. He later met up with the Beatles and was a major contributor for, Sgt. Pepper's. And he also was an influence on, the Rolling Stones, the Byrds, the Doors. They all have sitar. But, Alan had other interests too. Like he was very much into Francis Bacon. In fact, he was part of the Francis Bacon Society, which is a secret society that was, like the Freemasons or the Knights Templar. So he was actually a member of that. We have a lot of his documentation. There actually is a secret code. Supposedly, Francis Bacon or Shakespeare. Francis Bacon actually wrote all the Shakespeare literature, and there's actually a code to be able to decipher the true meaning of the Shakespeare writings. It's actually a formula that you go through and you decode it, and so he's privy to those codes.
That definitely sounds like an entire book.
Yeah. He was also very much into Edgar Casey. I talked with Alan a lot about Edgar Casey. He also, I don't necessarily promote this, but he believed in reincarnation. and he actually, at one point, a psychic had drawn a picture of him and then contacted him, and their kind of stories kind of matched up that he actually believed that he was a composer, musician during Leonardo da Vinci's time, and they actually gave the name of the person, and we looked it up, and yeah, that person actually did exist. He also thought he was a musician during the Egyptian times, and his cat that he was very close to in the 1940s was also an Egyptian cat, and they had experienced life together in previous times. So there's all these different rabbit holes I can go down, but I'm mainly concentrating on the music side at this point.
But that's very interesting. Yeah, lots of tidbits. And I mean, the reincarnation thing makes sense, especially since he did spend so much time over in India and so on too. That the Eastern culture,
Right.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Excuse me, Teresa. Excuse me. So, in terms of your readers and so on, do you tend to, like, what's your perspective in terms of writing? Do you try to write towards your readers, or do you try to just write what you love and what you think is important, and then try to get your readers to embrace it?
Yeah, I guess I've never thought, I mean, I think about readers because I love getting feedback from readers and that have experienced my stories and like my stories, and getting those emails in my inbox. But really, my work is more character based. Like, I always start with a character, and because I'm writing first person, that's all my novels have been first person so far. So it's really about that character and what I'm thinking about that character and the themes that character may embody, or the stories may embody. So I do think about young adult experiences too, as far as, I think a lot of my books can be categorized too as a little bit of coming of age. So in the beginning, Titania is just a princess, and then she's handed the crown. And so, she's always felt that's what she should be doing, but all these other people are saying maybe no. And so she really has to own, yes, this is what I believe I'm meant to do, and making that decision and then following through with it. So we have those themes in the books, but it's really like what that individual character or what that individual story is speaking to me about, right? In my head. I'm always asking questions about, what would that character do, or what would that character's experience as being? So I don't really, I try not to read fantasy when I write a couple different genres. So I don't read fantasy when I'm writing fantasy, and I really try to just stick to what is true to that character that I'm writing about.
So you have conversations in your head with them?
Oh, definitely. These are up close and personal to me. That's why I had to stop the series, because I kept putting them in harm's way and horrible things were happening to them, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I thought, these people have to have a happily ever after. I'm not putting them through anything else.
It's like poor Frodo at the end of Lord of the Rings, right?
I am very Stephen, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What age group is your children's books for?
I would say like from age 6 to about 99.
Okay.
Like I've tried it with 100 plus, and there's like
just not into it.
Yeah.
I was
trying to sleep. They sleep a lot once you're like around that age.
Yeah. I was trying to picture whether we were thinking this is like Captain Underpants length, or this was like a shorter length. So.
It's I would say, like, I put it like a Shrek type thing, where there's a lot of adult humor, like the grown-ups pick up and kids might not get, and then there's a lot of kid humor. So it's kind of long for like maybe anybody like under 6, 8 to 13. I think is a perfect range.
Yeah. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
Captain Underpants in space would be like a good, I think.
Yeah, I've
Pitch
read
for it.
Captain Underpants.
Yeah, I sat through many of those. So I was,
And the day my butt went psycho, zombie
was-
butts from Uranus.
Yeah.
That's my books my daughter read when she was young. So
yeah.
around like 12 years old. Yeah, so I remember those. I would put that right. Yeah, this fits right in, except it's more a graphic novel, which with pictures. Which those books are you just read a story.
Yeah.
Captain Underpants might have some pictures too.
Yeah.
Oh, Captain
Okay.
Underpants has tons
Yeah.
of pictures.
Yeah,
Pictures,
pictures.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more
But
like
I think you have more
zombie butts
alliteration.
from Uranus, which you actually had to read.
Yes. But yes, lots of alliteration.
And you wouldn't want a lot of zombie butt pictures in a kid's book anyway.
No. That makes sense, but that one was not as graphic. That might have been for, yes, a little older crowd then at that point. Tara, sorry, same question to you. Yeah, like, do you have conversations with your characters in your head? Like, how attached to them are you?
I get pretty attached, I think, because my characters are like a conglomeration of kids that I've actually taught. So it's never just like one student, but it's a whole bunch of them kind of piled together into a mismatch. And I see so much of them in my characters that and I deal with very emotional subject matter that I definitely get attached to them, and I want them to come out the other side of whatever challenge that they're going through. Which is, my protagonist. They're going through the ringer. They're going through these hard things, which all teenagers do. But there's always some hope at the other end because I can't just leave them. Like Trisha said, I don't want them to have a bad ending. I
Right.
need them to come out the other side. And I hope that shows kids who are going through those difficult things or have experienced some of the things that my characters have gone through, that they can see that even though things are really, really terrible at certain points in time, and even though as a teenager you feel like that is it forever, that's all encompassing, it'll never get better, it does get better, and there is some light at the end of the tunnel.
So, have any of your students read any of your books or no?
Oh
Are
yeah,
they your beta readers?
I have a great little fan club, a group of girls, and actually I have a group of girls who are like my beta readers, and they take like my early drafts and help this elder millennial really build a Gen Z character. They are pivotal to my ability to create an authentic teenager. So yeah, I have a group. They basically work with me on my books the whole way through, and they come to my signings and they repost stuff on Instagram, and they're the best.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Your own fan club. Very
Yeah,
cool.
got it built in.
Awesome. Linda, how about you? Do you, again, identify with your characters in the same way? Or are they, in a way, people that you've known that have gone through things, or maybe even some things yourself, or reactions to things you've seen in like the news and the world around you that you're kind of like internalizing or trying to get out in terms of like how you feel like it should have gone? Or yeah.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah. I think I write stories about stuff I'm trying to process myself, and I invent characters for those stories. I don't talk to my characters. I do have a lot of fun making them talk to each other. Dialogue is my favorite thing to write. So there are lots of scenes that never make it into the story. It's just talking heads, them to each other, me learning about them and finding out what my story is really about. Because I don't actually outline at all. I always write to find out my ending.
Gotcha. Okay. One last thing you can leave with the crowd today that are watching, like if you have any insights or things you want people to think about, what would you leave people with today?
Oh boy. If you're starting out as a writer, find your circle, get a community, find your people to get some feedback, and trusted people, right? You need to have readers that you can trust with what you're sharing, because it is a big deal. But to be able to share your feedback with others too is a way to learn to revise your work as well.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool. Stephen, what would you like to
Yes.
leave with people with today?
What am I doing?
What would you like to leave people? What thoughts would you like to leave people with today?
Well, the one thing, just people who are writing, I always say I write to make myself. I think that's, to me, it's always the most important thing. So that would be my thought. Um, and looking for a better world. That's when I write, that's the big thing that I try to convey, that it's possible to make this a better place.
Very cool. I concur. Both those cuts.
Yes.
William.
Same question?
Yep. What would you like to leave people with today?
Well, so this book is a biography. So I think what I would say is that everybody has a story, and history is important. I think we're kind of tending to, society is getting away from telling stories down through the different generations and retaining information, medical things, stories about history. We're kind of getting away from that. We should continue, put the phone down and start continuing talking with the family. Eating dinner at the dinner table. So that's kind of my.
Cool. So there are some common threads here. So it's like, everybody stop using your phone, put it down, pay attention to each other, and be real with each other one-on-one. For those people that don't know who Alan was, is there a specific piece you can give them to go take a look or listen to kind of just get a sample for his sound? And yeah.
Sure. So they're, some of the symphonies are fairly long, but you can go on YouTube and just, search on Hovannes, and it'll come up with, hundreds of recordings. I would recommend one of his most popular is Mysterious Mountain, which Carlos Santana actually did an interpretation of that on his Oneness album. There's a Mount St. Helens Symphony, which is actually kind of captures the eruption of Mount St. Helen. So it's, kind of the calm before the storm, and then you get the eruption. So those are kind of one of the two most popular. So I would recommend doing those.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Trisha, what do you want to leave people with today?
Right. So my characters really are, in really any book of mine that you pick up, my key word or my key phrase is finding the magic. So I think that there's magic in all of us, and that there's magic all surrounding us, and at little things every day, just rainbows and things like that. So my characters really embody that when whether they're finding their inner strength to, fight an invading species of locust, or they're just finding their inner strength to, get up the courage to say I love you to someone or something like that. So really looking at that in ourselves in our everyday life too is something that I like to kind of challenge people to do too.
Yeah, I wish more people read fantasy. It is probably my all-time favorite, just because there's so many different things you can convey in so many different places and ways to convey it. Just because it seems like it's so boundless in terms of where you can go. But yeah, at the same time, keeping things relevant to individuals as well. But I am all over. I love nonfiction, fiction, all kinds of fiction. But yeah, fantasy is my favorite, though, I gotta say. Tara.
Well, I'm going to carry on the theme. And obviously, this is a theme that I'm very passionate about. I think obviously tech is such a pivotal part of our lives, but it's becoming like the main character to too many people's lives. And I think we got to take it back to basics. Like William said, connect with people face to face, go outside, go for a walk, just don't forget that everything we see on the screen, it's not all real. This is not the be all and end all. There's so much more beyond that. Find the magic, like Trisha said, like just going outside and going for a walk can be the most amazing thing. And just get off the phones.
Get off phone. All right, get off your phone after you're done with the book fest. Watch the
Yes,
book fest.
after. Yes.
Too funny. Or take a break. It's recorded.
Take a break.
Come back and see it in a week or so.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, thank you all for being here. Great conversation. Lots to read. All you out there, there's got to be at least one book here that you would be interested in reading. So definitely check out their book pages, their author, speaker pages on the Book Fest. And yes, we got more coming your way with Book Fest. Take care.